One of the things My Hero Academia does best is in its depiction of heroes and villains, how they rise, how they fall, and the very, very gray area between those 2 points. And not surprisingly, this has led to a lot of fan art and fan fiction and hypotheticals about what if Deku became a villain? What if he was the big bad that had to be taken out in the end? And I honestly love almost everything I've seen about this. Depiction of kind-hearted, sweet little Deku being twisted into a monstrous villain. I just love it. So I decided I'm going to give my own interpretation on how this could happen because, quite frankly, I think we were pretty damn close. If one little event had gone differently, not some big character change, not some Deus Ex Machina that changed everything, just one little moment, one tiny, imperceptible decision had gone differently, Deku could very well have joined the League of Villains. Now, that might sound crazy, but I think it could have happened, and here's how. So, we open up in the second episode, the first chapter, right after Deku gets a whole speech from All Might, where he says, "Sorry, son, you can't be a hero, you should try being a cop or something." Now, we all know what happens here. Deku sees the destruction distance, wanders over to it, sees Kacchan, runs in to save him, inspires All Might, and then gets named the successor for One for All. Huzzah! But what if that didn't happen? I'm not saying Deku would have left Kacchan to die or anything, but what if he just hadn't gone towards the explosion? I mean, he even questions how he ended up there, saying it was just instinct because he's used to going towards, big explosions, villain battles, which is a whole other problem with this world, that people are just crowding around as basic gods fight right next to them, but moving on. What if Deku hadn't gone towards the explosion? What if his mother called and was worried about him, or just asked him to go pick up milk, or if he just hadn't noticed out the window? What would have happened then? Well, he would have gone home. Then, a few hours later, he'd be watching the news, and he'd see the truth. Slime villain. At first he thinks this is an old story, what happened before All Might stopped him, and then he realizes this happened afterwards. Because of him, the slime villain got loose, and he's filled with this overwhelming sense of guilt and horror, and then it gets worse. The news continues. A young boy with dreams of going to UA and becoming the next #1 hero was horribly injured before the heroes could stop the villain, and he's fallen into a coma, and they just don't know if he's ever going to wake up. And as Deku realizes that his friend, even if he didn't act like it, the person he looked up to most, second only to All Might, was hurt because of him, something inside him breaks. He falls to the ground, and he just cries and cries and cries. He doesn't go to school the next day or day after that. He simply stays alone, locked in his room. The news moved on fairly quickly after this attack, so he's just simply sitting there, watching the old news recordings, the old clips over and over again, wishing he had done something differently, wishing he hadn't clung on to All Might like that, but after a few dozen views, he notices something. The heroes. They're just standing there. They're not doing anything. Sure, their quirks aren't, specialized for going against the slime villain, but Deku himself found a way to almost get Kacchan free without any quirks or abilities whatsoever. And surely, if he'd had their powers, he could have figured something out. He comes up with a dozen different ways that those heroes, using their quirks and nothing else, could have stopped this sludge villain, and as he's realizing there was a way that Kacchan didn't have to be hurt like this, he sees someone in the background. A shriveled, wrinkled man that no one else would give a second mind to, but he knows him. And he knows the truth. All Might was there, and yet he did nothing. Sure, it was because of his injury, and Deku can't really blame him, but this still hurts. The #1 hero was there, and he failed to save him. He failed to save one of the people Deku cared about most in the world, and this hurts. This breaks him. And as he's imagining all different ways the heroes could have stopped this sludge villain, he begins writing them down, and before long it becomes essentially an article, a paper he had written himself about the situation, about what happened and what could have been done differently, about how the heroes failed to respond properly. And he puts it online. He doesn't sign his own name, partly out of fear of backlash, but mostly because he doesn't think anyone would care. Anyone would be interested in a piece written by a quirkless loser like himself. The next morning, he wakes up to find that his little article got far, far more attention than he ever imagined. Hundreds of people commented and liked and reposted and shared it with their friends, and people are reading it. People read it, and they were interested in what he had to say. Many of the comments are, of course, bad-mouthing him for, having the gall to insult the heroes, people who are risking their lives to save people every day, and he's just sitting there alone in his room finding things to complain about. But others praise him. They agree with him. They agree that more could be done, that heroes can do better, and what's more, some of them have their own stories, times where the hero failed to save someone, times where the heroes didn't even try, and a few others even have their own stories to tell. Stories of corruption and greed, about how the heroes have their own dark little secrets that no one else knows. And as Deku reads through all these comments, he's realizing the truth about hero society. It's not the glimmering, shining utopia he'd always imagined. The heroes aren't perfect. They aren't the idols he's imagined them to be. But he can make a difference. Even if he can't be a hero, he can make the hero society better. He can weed out the bad ones, let the people of the world know the truth, and hopefully inspire those who are left to be better. And so he continues writing. Whenever a situation with a hero ends poorly, he does a post about how things could have gone better, how they could have done things differently, how they could have done B or C instead of A, and how the situation likely would have had a much better outcome. But he also writes other things. He looks into the stories he's been told, the rumors and the darkness that fills the comment section of his blogs about what the heroes secretly do, about their drug addictions, their secret families, their bullying, their violence, and horrible things they do when no one's around, when they think no one's watching. And of course, he doesn't just post these things. He researches them, and using his vast knowledge of all things heroes, he's able to tell that many of them are just flat-out trolls lying to him, but others make a bit of sense, and with a bit of investigating the scene, contacting sources, he's able to find out that a few of them are actually really true. And so he begins to make a name for himself. Even the news is beginning to speak about Deku, this mysterious blogger who brought down a number of heroes. With each scandalous post he makes, another hero ends up either forced to retire or under investigation for criminal charges. And once the word's out there, other people share their own stories. They tell about how this hero did that, or that hero did that, or so on and so forth. The truth is coming out, and hero society is becoming a better place. The heroes care more about upholding their righteous morals because they're afraid that they might be discovered, they might be found out. But of course, others are still critical of him. As he's watching the news one day, there's panelists discussing him. Some are saying that he's a hero in his own right for showing the darkness in society and improving it, making things better. Others say he's just a cowardly loser, doesn't have what it takes to be a hero. And he has to laugh at this because it is true. He can't be a hero. He knows that. He's come to accept that over time. And yet, in his own way, he's making a difference. Like they said, he's just a little bit of a hero now. But that panel is interrupted by an updated report. One of the latest heroes that Deku has managed to bring down, after revealing that he has multiple children with his underage fans, was attacked by a mysterious bladed villain who somehow managed to paralyze him. Deku is taken aback by this and a little shocked. He feels awful that his article got this to happen, but he knows just how truly horrible that hero was and the terrible things he did. But that still doesn't excuse what happened to him. Later on that night, as he's about to go to bed, he checks his messages and finds a mysterious one. Thanks for the tip. That's one less stain on this world. I hope we can work together again. As Deku reads this over and over again, he's trying to convince himself, it's just a troll, it's just a troll, it's just a troll. There's no way this is the guy that attacked the hero. There's no way that he's reaching out to me now. I mean, why would he? And he's terrified by this. He's wondering if maybe he should stop. Maybe he should call the police, but he can't do that. He has brought down too many heroes already, and if they found out who he was, if they found out his real identity, he would be in danger. Heroes and villains alike would go after him, trying to dig up other dirt on the heroes or just silence him once and for all. And so he finally managed to convince himself to just troll and go to bed. He has to, because tomorrow is too big a day. His next story is the biggest one of his career, in a sense. He's dug up truth on the number 2 hero, on Endeavor. This so-called hero bought a woman, abused her, and impregnated her multiple times in an attempt to create the perfect hero, an attempt to create someone who could outshine All Might. This story seems ludicrous at first and impossible, but Deku has checked his sources again and again, including several maids that worked in the Endeavor household and even one of Endeavor's own children, who backed up everything that has been claimed and even more. Tomorrow he'll give the article a once-over and then he'll upload it, and another corrupt hero will fall. But all those plans are interrupted by a knock on the door. Deku assumes it was just his mother, forgot her keys when she was grocery shopping or something, and so he answers it. But standing on the other side of the door is a man, a giant of a man, and even without his hero costume on, Deku recognizes him immediately. He is Endeavor, the so-called hero. And Deku is frozen in place by the fierceness of this man's eyes. He stares down at him. He has no idea how he's been found out. He always wears disguises when he meets with informants. He's used burner phones, hid his location online. He did everything possible, and yet all of it was for naught because he has been found. He isn't sure what's going to happen next. Is Endeavor going to have him arrested? Try to pay him off? What? Endeavor does none of those. Instead, he says simply this. You live here alone with your mother, don't you, kid? It'd be a shame if something were to happen to her. Deku freezes, and then he simply walks away. His point has gotten across. If Deku pushes the story, Endeavor will have his mother killed. Such an action would seem impossible, but he's seen Endeavor's past. He knows what he's done, and an action like this would not surprise him in the least bit. And so Deku simply falls to the ground, once again feeling like the helpless loser he always was. But what's more, this time he feels anger. An anger like he's never known before. This is the number 2 hero. This is the second greatest man in all of Japan, and yet here he was threatening his mother. And that was on top of all the other horrible, awful things he has done in his life. Deku cannot allow this. He cannot allow this man to continue moving forward as the hero that the world knows. And so he makes a decision. A terrible, terrible decision, but in his mind it is a just one. He goes back to the message he got last night, thanking him for the tip, and he tells him everything. He replies with the truth about Endeavor, all the dark and horrible twisted things he's done, and his exact location at that moment. And then, 10 minutes later, he publishes the article and simply prays that he will not be damned for it. Later that night, the word spreads across the world. The hero Endeavor has fallen. And what's more, his name has been ground to dust. The so-called number 2 hero in the world had a dark, terrible past. No one mourns him now. Deku was left shaken by his actions, by what he did, by what he had to do to protect his family, and yet he could not deny the world is a far, far better place without Endeavor in it. So once more, he reaches out to the mysterious hero killer and arranges a meeting. A deal is struck between the two of them. Deku will provide him with information about the worst of the worst, the darkest of the heroes, those who do not deserve to live in society anymore, and he will take them out. It is a dark and terrible bargain, but once more Deku believes that what he is doing is for the betterment of the world, for the betterment of society as a whole. And Deku even begins training under Stain, learning his arts, his techniques, how to wield a knife, how to wield a sword, how to defend himself in case another hero ever manages to track him down, ever manages to find him. And so time passes by. This version of Stain, the one who goes after the truly corrupt, the truly evil among the heroes, isn't viewed in the same light as the old one was. Some even view him as doing the good thing, the right thing, and in the eyes of many, he is a far greater hero than the ones he kills. Sometime later, they are recruited by the League of Villains, though this, of course, goes poorly, as they get into debate about All Might and his role in Hero Society. As the two are within seconds of killing one another, Deku finally lets it slip, the truth about All Might in his broken state. Stain is taken aback by this and doesn't want to believe it, but he trusts his partner and knows he wouldn't lie about this. He decides to leave for now and reconsider what he's truly fighting for in this world. And as Deku goes to follow, he hears laughter coming from the TV in the background. The cowling cackle of All for One. He is amused by this, by the sorry state that All Might is in and how he's suffering, and he has a truly terrible, devious idea on how to make him suffer even more. He offers Deku the one thing he's always wanted his entire life. He offers him a quirk, a power all his own that can make him stand up, even be the equal of All Might himself. And Deku, he accepts. He can't say no after all he's been through, and so he's given a quirk all his own. Likely a fire-based quirk reminiscent of Bakugo's. Hell, if Bakugo's been in a coma this whole time, maybe he just swipe Bakugo's. That would be interesting. But this transfer has an effect on him. Like so many before him, being granted a quirk in this manner alters his mind and twists his morals even more. He is a far, far different man than the boy who could do nothing, the quirkless loser he used to be. He is Deku the villain. And that's about where I'm going to wrap it up. So, yeah, those are my thoughts on how Deku could have become villain. Honestly, I think this all could have been quite possible if Deku had just, not gone to the slime villain. Just walked away. Kachan had been injured. He felt guilt. He felt anger. I think this could have happened. This, of course, isn't what I consider to be like the ultimate version of how this could work, because honestly, I think one of the best things about all of the evil Deku fan art is just Bakugo's reaction when he sees that Deku's become a villain, and it doesn't really work if Bakugo's dead or in a coma or something, I definitely see, he was terribly injured in a coma for a few months. Then he woke up and decided, and All Might decided, hey, you're my new apprentice now. I'm going to give you the power. So it'd be, Bakugo versus Deku in the end. That would be pretty awesome. Honestly, if they make a alternate history movie of this series, I would just love to see one where Deku ended up becoming the villain. I think there's a lot of potential in this. But yeah, let me know what you think in the comment section down below. Do you think this is possible? Do you think it isn't? How do you think it would have happened? And what would you most want to see out of an evil Deku movie? Also, just let me know if there's any other alternate scenarios you want to see. Could Ida have become a villain? I think that's very possible with where he was with the whole Stain thing. Bakugo, definitely villain material. I think all that would be needed for that would be if Deku had been the one taken by the slime villain and Bakugo accidentally killed him when he was trying to save him, kind of like a gentle backstory a little bit. But though I did feel it was very important that Deku had to become a villain at this exact moment, before All Might trained him, before all this was promised to him, before he got all this support and help from All Might, his friends, his classmates, and all that. Because as Deku is now in both the manga and anime, he's reached a point where I just don't think he can become a villain no matter what happens to him. I've seen a lot of fan art that says Shigaraki's eventually going to go after and kill his mother, which, yeah, that would suck, but I don't think that'd be enough to turn him into a villain, honestly. But again, let me know what you think down below. Be sure to like, subscribe, don't miss the next video. Until then, peace!